He's the candidate that corporate-owned press and mainstream two-party system love to hate. As the other GOP candidates have dropped like flies, Ron Paul's still in it for the long haul. Even though he suspended his campaigning in states where primaries haven't been held, he's still going full force to the convention and continues to pick up delegates along the way. So what is going to happen at the convention, and where is it all going to go from there? For more on Ron Paul's strategy, I was joined earlier by Brian Doherty, senior editor at Reason.com and author of the book, The Ron Paul Revolution.
It makes sense that he's not going to spend a lot of money he doesn't have, buying ads or sending his body around to these primary states. Though I do think as a PR move, the announcement was perhaps a little misguided because it was spun by all too many people in the media as Paul drops out and as if the Ron Paul story is over. But it is very much not over. Even this weekend, the state of Minnesota is having the convention where it picks its delegation to the national convention, and it looks almost certain that Ron Paul is going to win that state as well. That'll be his second state he's winning. He's looking good in Louisiana, Iowa, and Missouri as well, and he is going to come into that convention in Tampa not just a fringe candidate, but a strong number two to Mitt Romney, the last competitor standing, and his libertarian wing of the party is going to make a splash, and they're going to tell the Republican Party, look, we are here and we cannot be ignored.
So at this point, it's more of a symbolic gesture to kind of show their force and really create this division within the GOP to say, hey, listen to us. We obviously have a lot of pull, and we're a strong force to be reckoned with. But what do you think it's going to do to the GOP divide? I mean, you have the neoconservative, this archaic neocons on the right, and this extreme divide with these new libertarian Ron Paul supporters. I mean, what do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, I do want to say that while it is symbolic, it is not just symbolic, because another thing the Paul people have been doing, not just racking up delegates, but also having their people take over positions of authority within state party structures. Iowa and Alaska now, their state chairmen are both strong Ron Paul people. So the Ron Paul people are going to be the people doing the sort of low-level work of a party apparatus, and that's going to be very important to the kind of candidates the party puts forward, the kind of candidates they support. How important this is going to be really depends, obviously, on whether Romney wins or not. If Romney is the nominee and he loses, and we can see that one of the reasons he lost is that he was not able to keep the votes and the enthusiasm of the Paul people, that's going to anger the Republican Party in the short term, but I do think it will scare them straight about the notion that we need to put forward, the party needs to put forward candidates that are serious about cutting spending, that don't defend bailouts, that actually have consistent small government records, and Ron Paul was the only one in the race who did.
Brian, in 2008, my brother and a lot of other people I know voted for Ron Paul in the primaries, and they were really disappointed when he didn't go for it and run independent. And I know that you said he doesn't have a lot of money to spend, and that might be the reason why he kind of made this decision. But do you think that he would possibly run third party or independent this time? I mean, it is his last hurrah.
I will say what Dr. Paul always says, which is that he doesn't plan on it. Of course, he also never says absolutely 100% I won't do it. The legal deadlines to do that are getting very close. Every state is different, but basically through the summer, if you haven't done the work to get your name on the ballot, you can't really do an independent run. I don't expect him to do it because his campaign has clearly made the decision that, hey, we're doing well enough within the Republican Party. The Republican Party is one of the major vehicles of power in this country. Let's try to move ahead and influence that party, because third-party runs never actually do well in the country. I mean, those are purely symbolic moves, and the Paul campaign feels that they are making headway in the Republican Party, and it's not worth ruining all that progress by a failed third party.
But what about all his supporters? I mean, it's really Ron Paul or die for them. I mean, this has been going on since 2008, and they've donated millions of dollars to his campaign, and the money bombs he's been doing have garnered so much money. Do you think that's kind of taking the money and running?
No, not at all. I mean, he spent the money. The campaign, he ran a campaign. The campaign is down to around $1 million. It is worth pointing out that he raised nearly as much as both Gingrich and Santorum combined. His people are the giving people in the Republican Party. And if he wanted to raise more, he could. And his people are going to be extremely disappointed, obviously, that Ron Paul is not going to end up being the nominee. And Mitt Romney cannot count on winning their votes. My prediction, people talk about where's the Ron Paul vote going to go, as if the Ron Paul vote is the thing that has to exist. In fact, the Ron Paul vote was created by Ron Paul, and without Ron Paul, I'm going to guess that more than half of it is going to dissipate. They're going to continue being active in politics, but they're not necessarily going to cast their vote for a presidential candidate.
What about the delegates at
what
about the delegates at the convention, though? To sum this up really quickly, I mean, he's already come out and said that he's not going to endorse Gary Johnson, and he's kind of held off on saying his endorsement for Mitt Romney, which I find strange. But I mean, what do you think the delegates are going to do once they're there? I mean,
they're going to vote for Ron Paul.
All right.
They're going to vote for Ron Paul. That's what they're there to do. I think it is extremely unlikely that Paul will endorse Romney. To do so would dissipate the goodwill of his fans in a really dangerous way. It'd be a very foolish move for Paul to do that.
Well, it's an exciting time for the GOP, and really to see where this is going. It's great that there's a change and a shift of policy, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. That was Brian Doherty, senior editor of Reason.com and the author of Ron Paul Revolution, the man and the movement he inspired.